from Georgia, the vice chair of the subcommittee, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank all of you for being here. This is extremely important. You know, I represent South Georgia, and we have a saying in Georgia, there are really two Georgias. There's Atlanta and everywhere else, and I represent everywhere else, and everywhere else is rural, and we're trying to close the digital divide. That's what we want to do. We want to make sure everybody's got access, but we also want to make sure that these programs are working efficiently and effectively. I have to be quite honest with you. I'm very thoroughish. Simplify, simplify, simplify. Over 130 programs, though? I mean, it just seems like we've got way too many. And that's what really concerns me. I just don't know why we need 130 of them. I think we're all after the same goal of closing the digital divide, but 130? Goodness gracious. Let me ask you, Dr. Walston, according to the FCC, there are over 20 million households that have enrolled in the Affordable Connectivity Program. How many of these enrollees are new broadband subscribers? Do you have any idea? How many of them are just, these subsidies are going to consumers who've already been connected?
Well, we don't actually know the answer to that question.
See, that's the kind of question I need answers to.
I agree. Yeah, I think there's a mistake of we confuse inputs with outputs.
Yeah.
So
yeah. How would Dr. Walston, how would you evaluate whether the ACP is a success or not?
I think you're on the right track. Well, first we want to know exactly what the goal of the ACP is. And if it's to close the digital divide, then the question is how many additional people are subscribing because of the ACP, and also how many people stayed on because of the ACP. The latter, of course, is much harder to know. And so that's the question. What is the...
but the former is not hard to know.
No, it shouldn't be.
Right. What kind of reforms would you make to the ACP to make it more effective if you had the chance?
Right. Well, let me start off by saying one really good thing about the ACP is that it's from general revenues, which I think is appropriate, and it's a voucher program which lets the consumer choose where they want the money to go. Those are really good things. But other things could change. So, for example, it's a $30 subsidy. I don't know whether that's too much or too little, but we know that because it can only go to one company, any price between 0 and 30 is $0 to the consumer. So it kind of has a not great effect on price competition at the low end. One possibility might be to allow the voucher to be split, for example, between two companies. Mm-hmm. Then that might help restore competition on the low end of the market. So I think things like that could be very helpful.
Mr. Spalter, do you have any suggestions?
I think that it is, given the fact that the rollout for ACP we're still in its infancy, we're going to need some time to do the kind of evaluation that Dr. Walston has suggested is going to be absolutely critical to ensuring that if we are going to suggest any effective reforms, that we have the right kind of data to be able to do so.
Okay.
I would say, however, that what's absolutely critical is that we extend the program so that we can ensure that your constituents and others that are represented by many of you can have access to the broadband and the choices that come with the ACP over time.
All right, Mr. Forty, in your testimony, you mentioned how permitting regulations impede broadband development. And I know you find this hard to believe, but I got a bill for that. The bill is the American Broadband Deployment Act, and it would streamline these procedures. And I'm thoroughish. I want to simplify. I want to streamline. How does permitting play a role in the future of broadband, and how does it promote U.S. global competitiveness?
Thank you for the question. That's absolutely key. We were just recently working on a project in the beautiful the Black Hills in South Dakota, and probably not that much different from the areas you serve. And we had issues with there was a road through the area, but it was through Forest Service land. We weren't able to access that right away. We tried looking at drilling through the rock. $200,000 per mile to drill fiber through that rock. Found that there was poles there, very old poles that we could potentially have access. But the pole company, challenges with wanting them to hang on that poles or replace all the poles because they were 40 to 50 years old at our expense. So the reality of that is when you were running into all these different challenges to serve one of our last truly unserved places in America, it just puts a tremendous burden on a provider to try to solve all those issues in a very short period of time with government funding. It makes it very difficult, where if we would have had some of those challenges eliminated, we could add service to those folks today.
Right, right. Thank y'all, and I'm out of time, but 130, too many. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield back.